Good evening, Bangalore. I am Dr. Swati Lodha, and I am a lifelong kindergartner. I had my maternal instincts very strong from the very beginning, much before I became a biological mother. But then my childlike instincts are savage too. So I kind of keep alternating between being a child and being a parent all the time. People like to address me as a leadership coach, but I always prefer to be called a children's spokesperson. Actually, it all started in year 2016 when I wrote a book titled Don't Raise Your Children, Raise Yourself. This book was written for all those parents who believe that parenting is an emotion and we need some preparation to be a good parent. I was doing some promotional events, some book tours to promote this book, and my daughter, who was 16 at that time, would sometimes travel with me so that we could do these tours and she could take some photographs and things like that. So after finishing one of those talks, there was one listener who was sitting like this, and he just, after the talk, he didn't ask a question to me but to her. And he asked, hey, your mother is this cool expert who keeps giving this parenting gyan to everyone all the time. Do you think she's perfect? Nobody is, she said. And after that, he prodded further. This gentleman asked her, can you tell me one thing that you feel is wrong with your mom? I can write a book about that, came the reply in a millisecond. The spontaneity and the clarity with which she said so made me think that this girl actually has a book inside her to talk about what is wrong with me. So I went and asked her, can you really write a book like that? And she said, no, I can't because I'm going to the 12th standard and I don't have time. I still prodded, just like a persistent mom. I went and asked her again, but do you want to write it? If you want to, I can help you. And she said, okay, I can give it a try. And that is how we started talking to each other. And I told her that I will be a scribe to you just the way Lord Ganesha wrote whatever Maharishi Vedvyas dictated to him, and that is how Mahabharata was born. So I became a scribe and she started ranting, I'm sorry, not ranting, but just sharing her views with me, and I realized how angry she was with the tribe of parents. And I started writing with her. Soon I realized that this is not working. So I started discussing, debating, sulking, and crying also at times. Soon the monologues turned into a dialogue, and after that we both came from our mountains of ego to a zero ego place, and I became not Lord Ganesha to Maharishi Vedvyas, but a Hermione Granger to Harry Potter. That is a dependable friend, an advisor, and a guide in distress. Through all those discussions that we had with each other was a complete journey of adventure and anguish, and what resulted was a book titled 54 Reasons Why Parents Suck. You heard it right. There is a silence like this whenever I talk about this book and I name it, and there are a lot of people who feel that it is sacrilege to say parents and suck in the same sentence. But honestly, I must admit, this was the only title that I wanted for this book. The book is written in the language of teenagers, and I hear so many teenagers these days who talk about, I suck at math, or they say that this TV show sucks. So that is why I wanted that the book should connect with the teenagers, and that is how the name was born. The book has a research which we conducted with 200 students aged between 8 to 18, and we have used their beliefs, biases and behaviors that they feel that their parents have. Wait, you might ask, what is the need of this kind of a research? Why do we want to listen to what kids want from us? Why do we want to decode how do they want to be raised? A 14-year-old gave me a true answer to your question, if that's going on in your mind right now. She said, when a consumer product is designed, The consumers are asked, what kind of aesthetic features do you want in this product? What kind of functional features would do good? When you go to a restaurant to eat, there's a menu card to help you decide what exactly would you want to eat. So now, when a consumer is given an opportunity to vocalize his wishes, when a diner is given a choice to prefer what he wants to eat, why can't children be given this opportunity to tell their parents how do they want to be raised? And that is how I thought that this book needs to be written. And today I'm going to talk to you about 6 or 7 of those reasons which these kids gave me. And while I was talking to this 14-year-old, my daughter told me that don't you tell me now that you guys are little people, you have little wisdom, because in your book only you have said that if you have a 1-year-old, you are a 1-year-old mom or dad. So if we are little people, you are little parents. So this is how I started gathering all the pearls of wisdom from these children, and I'm going to share some of that with you. The first of the problems or the issues that these children have with parents is that they feel, for most of the parents, disagreement is equal to disrespect. My daughter is a photography enthusiast, and so she generally, whenever she travels, she carries her laptop and her camera with her. And of course, she takes more time packing and unpacking on all the security zones. And if my husband is traveling with us, he gets really mad. He gets angry and he'll always tell her, why can't you pack all this in your check-in baggage? She says, these things are valuable. They might get damaged. I can't do that. And he always comes back to argue and says that these can be packed properly. We can't waste time like this all the time. So this argument accompanies us to all the airports every time. And would you believe, just before we were writing this book, this husband of mine tells my daughter on an airport that you respect these things more than people. And my daughter was aghast. But then she told me that you guys love obedience, you guys dislike defiance. The problem here is a very simple illusion of control. You must have seen that whenever we drive a car or when we sit in an aeroplane, we feel safer when we are driving a car, for the simple reason that we feel that we can control the car, while when we are in a plane, the control is with someone else. Similarly, as parents, we have the same illusion of control, and that is why we try to have an authority, we try to control them. While what children want from us is that we should recalibrate our relationship with obedience and defiance. The second issue or problem that most of the children told me that they have with their parents is that parents suffer from an endowment effect. Suppose you want to buy a flat and you've shortlisted 3 of them, option A, B and C. Option B is something that you don't like because the building is old and the view is sad. And you like option A because option A is very nice, but then it is overpriced. So finally you think that I'll go for option C. But at the same time, the seller of option C backs out, and so you have to ultimately buy what was the worst option for you. Now when you end up buying the worst option, as soon as you buy it, it becomes the best buy for you. You start feeling that whatever you've bought is the best. The same thing happens with every baker. Every baker feels that the bread that I bake is the softest and the sweetest. Same happens with all the parents, because they have a sense of ownership, they have an emotional investment in their children. So whatever they do becomes the best. And the children also start feeling, they also start overestimating themselves in the same way. And so as soon as a child picks up a bat, he starts feeling like Virat Kohli. Thanks to all the parents who suffer from this endowment effect. Most important thing that children want is that the parents should be more realistic in thinking about their children, and they should always remember that we should be able to face our fears and our fantasies with equal balance. The third thing that I came across came from a little one, and this little one told me that I am labeled all the time. I am labeled by my teacher as bad at English, I am labeled by my mother as a naughty child, I am labeled by my sister as being self-centered, And similarly, professionals are labeled or professionals are appraised at their workplaces. But then there is no appraisal system for parents. They are never appraised. A stand-up comic gets a feedback every 15 seconds. A child gets a feedback from parents every 5 seconds. But why don't the parents get any feedback? This guy was a fan of Airbnb, so he said that we should have a mutual rate and review system. Just the way we have between the homeowners and the travelers, why can't we have the same? I agreed. Another thing came from an incident that I experienced myself. There was this friend of mine who would always talk about two of her nephews to me who were IIT pass outs, just like Jatin here. And she would always talk about both of them, that they are doing brilliantly well and they are amazing. And I met her after a long time, and so she didn't mention the nephews, and so I asked, how are they? And she turned pale. And she told me that they declined all the good packages that they were getting, and they've started a startup where they are offering water solutions to the farmers in India. Okay. Parents love outcomes. Not only outcomes, they love all the measurable outcomes. And they judge all those outcomes more harshly, of which they didn't approve in the beginning. So when these outcomes go bad, the parents really treat children in a bad manner. But the reality is that many of the good films, they flop on the box office. Many people who are smart individuals, their marriages break, and many intelligent decisions can have unlucky outcomes. So please listen to what children have to say. Children say that when others, outsiders, peers, teachers, they cannot see the intentions, it is agreeable because they have not seen the amount of effort that we put in making something happen. But parents, being insiders, being witnesses to what we are doing, cannot only value outcomes. They need to value our intentions too. Tom Vanderbilt, in one of his books, Traffic, says that most of the accidents, they don't happen when there are steep roads or there are curvy turns. Most of the crashes happen on all the clear roads when there is a sunny day and when the drivers feel safe. This feeling safe happens with parents also. And parents, they see but do not observe. Observation is a dying art, and parents are the living example. They also suffer from the slippery slope bias, because of which if a plane lands from 1,000 feet straight to the land, we will know that a landing happened. But if there is a smooth landing that happens, we sometimes don't even experience that we landed. So the problem is that if there is a child who makes some mistakes, which is a major mistake, then the parents observe it. But if there is an incremental change that happens over a long period, then they sometimes miss it. And because of that lack of observation on the part of parents, it happens that many of the times parents are shocked when suddenly they find out that their children are involved in something like substance abuse, or they are doing some things like maybe they are thinking of committing suicide, or they are into any other kind of behavioral addiction. So what children expect from parents is a more silent but strategic observation, which is missing right now in their behavior at a lot of places. The final thing that I want to share with you is something that made me decide that I need this to be the title of the book, and that is how parents think about their sons and daughters. We believe that a daughter should be a princess and a son should be a superhero. We believe that a daughter should be tender and a son should be tough. We believe that boys should fix things and girls like getting things fixed. And just because of our domestic distinction in our families from the very beginning, today we find that more skin lightening creams are sold in South Asia than the bottles of Coca-Cola. It only happens because of how we think about girls and boys from the very beginning. These girls ask me, why can't we have gender neutral homes? Why can't you raise gender agnostic families? Two famous behavior economists from US, Uri Gnizzi and John List, did an experiment. It was a beautiful experiment which was done in 2 different parts of the world. The first part was a patriarchal village in Tanzania and another was a matriarchal village in India. And at both the places, they told these villagers to play a small game with them. The game was that you play a tennis ball and throw it in a bucket. And there were 2 options given to all of them. The first option was that you play alone and you play 10 throws. As many number of times that the ball goes in the bucket, you earn $1 each time. And another option was you play with a competitor and this time you win $3 each time that you compete, but only if you make maximum throws, more throws than your competitor. And the research found out that in the matriarchal village, more than 50% of the women took the competitive option, while in the patriarchal village, there were only 26% of the women who took this option. This goes on to prove that whether women are competitive or aggressive or willing to do something doesn't depend upon nature. It is not a genetic combination. It depends upon nurture. So it depends upon us, the kind of sons and daughters do we want to raise. These people, these children right now are little people. They might not come to our height, but we can definitely bend down to listen to them. So I'm sure that we must admit that as parents, we need to raise our games before trying to raise them. Thank you.